Okay, looks like it's started, so thanks very much. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Sheila McHardy, and I'm going to be working on this presentation. It's quite a short one with Bala, who I think hopefully is on the call somewhere. So we're going to be working through this presentation on, I've called it Grieving Gracefully. So let me just share my screen and hopefully you can all see that. So what are we talking about here? The purpose of this session is really to talk about post-project offboarding, and I've called it Grieving Gracefully because I think there's a lot of parallels with the grief process. So really we're talking about those times when you've been maybe embedded on a project for months and months or weeks, and you're very much in the weeds of it and it's coming to a close. So there's a lot of trepidation, there's a lot of fear around what happens after go live, what am I going to do next? There's probably a big party and a handover and maybe a little bit of your hypercare or business as usual monitoring, but what happens after that? Why am I going to talk about this? The reason is that probably most of you have felt this at some point if you've been on big projects. Many of you will probably have ignored it. I certainly have ignored it in the past myself. And some of you will be yet to experience it. So I think it can have really different effects on different people. It depends on your role in the project. It depends if you are a third-party consultant or if you are an internal resource. And it's really important to think about strategies for dealing with it. So that's what we're talking about today. So before we get started properly, I'm just going to share a little QR code. So we're going to do a couple of polls. They're very quick fire polls, just to understand what experiences people have of this so far. So I'm sharing QR code just now if you want to grab a snap of that. And Bala, if you could pop that in the chat as well, just so that people can continue to interact with that as we go. And we'll do a poll at the end or as I'm doing the next slide, which is really around what that grief process looks like. All right, I'll move on. Hopefully everybody had a chance to grab that QR code. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is just cover off what that offboarding grief process looks like. I think most of you probably have experienced or have seen other people on big projects coming off a project, and the first thing you think of is burnout. So you think of that rapid deceleration. It's been a really intense time, a lot of communication, a lot of late nights, a lot of weekend working, and it's the burnout is probably one of the more obvious ones. And some people work with it really well, and other people really do need to take a step back and take a break. But there's a lot of other symptoms, there's a lot of other feelings that I think really can affect people. And this has certainly been conversations that I've had with people over the years as we've been working on big projects, and depending on your role, how it affects you. So I'd say the next one, apart from burnout, for me, is definitely that feeling of abandonment. So if you've been working with the same group of people really closely, talking every day, working through project problems in a really deep way, suddenly that community is spread to the four winds. Your working team is completely scattered, and you do feel a little bit isolated, a little bit lonely, a little bit not sure where to turn. Especially if you aren't immediately onto another big project or you don't have a real focus for your attention after that. The other piece I think is imposter syndrome. So inevitably, if you've been in the weeds with a particular project for a while or a particular set of technologies, the tech will have passed you by. So your skills might be out of date. You might have to upskill on a lot of people, on a lot of parts of it. And if there's new features, then trying to get to grips with all of those can feel a little bit overwhelming. So there's definitely an element of not knowing where you're supposed to be sitting next on that. And that can lead to that lack of focus. So switching context to either a new project or just a business as usual, or perhaps going back to a support role, it can take a while to really get into that and understand what you're supposed to be doing, how you're supposed to be focusing your time, and to really get motivated to do that. And the last two, I think, are the ones that people keep really well hidden. So it's that emptiness, it's that anxiety, confusion, and fear of not providing value anymore, fear of not being as productive as you used to be because things have decelerated a little bit, or of being a bit left behind because of those technology gaps. So in the poll that we've got, hopefully you all managed to get hold of the QR code there. I'm interested to know which of these you've experienced before. So do stick a couple of votes in that poll. And when we get closer to the end, I'm going to hand over to Bala, and he's going to give us a bit of a rundown of what the results of that poll were. Okay, so moving on, you'll probably all have seen this in some manner. So this is the standard grief curve that's applied to grief in all guises. Starts with denial. You're not really accepting that something has happened. You don't accept that the project is potentially over, or that your entire working practice at that point is going to change significantly. And when you pass that and you realize that it has, it can lead to anger. So anger is the next stage, and I think this is where there's a real kind of chaotic piece. This is where there's a lot of confusion, a lot of difficulty, a lot of challenge, a lot of protectionism, where you're feeling like you need to protect yourself. And that can actually take quite a long time to pull through that stage of the grief curve. After that, you're looking at bargaining. So in a standard grief scenario, if we're talking about perhaps a bereavement or something, this is when you start thinking, well, oh, but could you just bring them back if I did this one thing? Or in a project scenario, you might say, well, I could just maybe keep on working on that if they still want to do some more, if they still want to put some more budget into it. So you start bargaining on the types of work that you will start to do. But that doesn't often work. So then you're really moving into a kind of depression stage before you can really spend the time to process it and come out at acceptance. So what I've done on this slide is I've just put this into the context of how you might respond to this in a post-project scenario. So much of what I've just said, you start with finding fixes. It's not finished yet. We didn't get the chance to do this piece or that piece or understand the impact of what we've done. So it's really not finished yet. And then the anger piece is that lack of engagement. As I said, you're really looking at, why is this happening? Why did it finish so early? Why don't I know what I'm doing next? So there's a lot of parallels there with that anger. Bargaining for me very much is staying in my comfort zone. It's quite hard to understand where to go next and understand what I can do about it. And the longer you spend in that, the more into a depression piece you'll become. And that's when your productivity really will become lower potentially, or if you don't have the strategies to deal with that, you can become extremely unfocused. You can really struggle to provide that value that you're striving for. So what we really want to do is have some strategies to deal with that. And that strategy implementation piece at the end of that curve is what hopefully will get you through the last piece and into the acceptance phase, so that you can move on into the next piece. So I thought it was worth maybe just covering off a couple of key stages in my own experience of this. And this, I should probably point out, this is something that until fairly recently, I don't think had really happened to me in any great sense. And I used to work with somebody many years ago who was always talking about this and the importance of it. And although I understood the concepts, I hadn't really experienced it. And I suppose I didn't really have a point of reference to say that, yes, it really does. It does affect people, and it does need to be a managed piece. So I've added some little icons there just to highlight that when we started this mentoring program back in June, I'd say that's roughly where I was with the little frowny face next to bargaining. And then come beginning of July, middle of July, I went on holiday. And I had to take a week off, and Bala will attest to this, that it was only after a week off in the sun, trying to not think about anything, that I realised that this is what was happening to me. I was really in that funk of, I don't know what I'm doing. Do I need to look for a new job? Do I need to do a career change? And I think that affected even the goals that we were setting as part of this mentorship program. So working through not only this presentation, but the goals that we were working with from mentorship really helped me to move on and come through this on the other side. So I think just to kind of put a little bit of a personal touch on it, I think I'm not quite at acceptance yet, having come off of a project that was about an 18-month project. I'm definitely getting there. And now I think I'd like to share some of the strategies that we've been working through to help that happen. So these strategies are definitely applicable to anybody that's part of a project team. So these are individual strategies, but they will apply whether you are external consultant, internal person, developer, architect, any of the roles that you're in, this can be relevant to. And I've bucketed them into three main categories that I think are really important. The first one, and I think it's the one that you need to do first, is just reflect on what you've done. Reflect on what you've achieved, and definitely take some rest is important. I learned that the hard way, that rest is important to allow your brain to reprocess, learn, think about how to take stock of what you've achieved and acknowledge the success of what you've done. That's what really gives you the chance to assess any growth that you've had. You'll have learned so much on a project. You've done things you've never done before, worked with different types of people. You can absolutely take out some positive learnings from that. And to solidify that, it's worth asking for 360 feedback. So ask for that feedback from all different types of people that you worked with. Understand what you did well, understand what you could work more on, understand which areas you got skill on. And that will help you redefine who you are, where you're going next, and give yourself a little bit of a purpose. So part of this is just the reset and setting of new goals to take you into the next period. So the learning piece, I think, is really important. As I said, tech will almost certainly have passed you by if you've been in a particular version of a particular software system that has moved on since then. So take the time, try and upskill on some new features, technologies, strategies, and dedicate some time to that and give yourself the space to say, it's okay that I'm not quite 100% at the top of this game at the moment. I need to work towards that to be able to make that happen. Lastly, I think connection is really important. I'm very much around, everything I do is around people. Everything I do is around the user experience. It's around making sure that people have the tools that they need. And keeping those relationships active is really important, even if you're not working with them anymore. Maintain those active relationships. Reconnect with the networks that you have built over time, because you never know when those things will come around again. Make sure you're seeking support if you're feeling the effects of this, but also remember that others might be feeling it and it may not be that obvious. So supporting others can really foster a really good sense of community. And once you've been working towards all those goals that you've set, you should be shouting about them. You should be saying, I'm now ready to do this. I want an opportunity to do this or learn this or work on a project that works with this new technology. That's really important, I think, to make sure that you're always professionally developing as you go through. And those connections this community is brilliant for that kind of thing. Those mentorship pieces will go a long way to helping with that. So before I move on to the last slide and hand over to Bala, we've got another poll. So I'll flash up the QR code again. I think it's the same one. So you should have a second poll in there just to give an insight into what you have experienced or how many of you already do some of these or recap on these strategies periodically. Perhaps if you already do them, you're less susceptible to feeling some of this grief or project offboarding challenges. So it's interesting to see who's doing what. So I'm now going to hand over to Bala. Bala, are you on the call? I'm hoping Bala is on the call.
Sorry, yes, I am. I don't know why I'm in two devices, and yeah, the Teams is funny today. So
okay, well, I will hand over to you. Bala's going to take us through the last slide, which I'll move on to. Do you have any of the poll results so far?
yeah, I pasted that in the chat for the first question. The second one, I'll do the second one shortly.
I couldn't see the chat, so that's great. I will move on to the slide deck, and you can cover off the last slide, and then we'll see where that one goes.
Yep.
There we go.
Thank you. All right. So the previous slide, and thank you for the opportunity. I know, as Sheena highlighted, we started with how we can use technology to make our life better. So our initial first few weeks were, how can I use Copilot, what I need to do, what I need to learn, and then after the holiday, it's like, okay, hang on, I'm not having the right mindset to focus on it. So what's wrong with us? And we started brainstorming and coming up with like strategy. So the previous one was self-initiative. Like it could be applicable to anyone who feels it. But this is more from an organizational point of view. I know few of the mentors here or few of the mentees here have like a commandable lead role. So we would love if you could take away some of these strategy and help shape your team. Doesn't need to be Power Platform, but it's just about how you build a cohesive, likable environment. So first thing is acknowledgement. I know this particular program acknowledge the effort that everyone puts in. So a green ticks is straight away out here. But typically in big projects, what I have seen is they create some sort of project reels, like what happened during testing or some cameo interview with end users and stuff like that, and they do tag people and tell them like, this is the person who has helped me, or this person helped me to do the change comms or whatever, like just to acknowledge the effort that the person or the team has done. So I would urge if organization can think about that. uh, in my previous workplace, we had a structured peer-to-peer recognition system. So like I can go and nominate Sheena saying like, hey Sheena, you have done a brilliant job. And at the back end, it was basically incentivized to get some points, and she can exchange the points to do something else. It could be a learning credit, it could be a coffee break, or whatever it is. So we had that system, not here. But yeah, that's something that I'm trying to push in my current organization. And of course, programs like this would basically help to regularly do like a mentor kind of conversation rather than like managers, because you typically in a big organization you definitely have a line manager, you might have a bi-weekly connect, but you might not feel comfortable sharing a lot of stuff. So that's where program like this comes very handy. The second pillar that I would say is support. So you have gone through a lot of emotional strategy. Just put yourself in shoes of other, and I would urge you to think about like how you can help your team. Think about recharge day, or an away day. Think about communities just like this, where you can share your success stories. You can probably spark interest in people who are listening to you, and then figure out like, hey, can I cross train on certain topics, or uh, can I mentor on certain situation? Uh, and in a bigger organization, you need to think about learning budget. So if you are having a portfolio and if you have budget, think about ring fencing like 5 or 10% of the budget, so that you can keep the team motivated and say like, hey, uh, you have done exceptionally well. So I know Microsoft learn.microsoft has everything free, but think about if you can spend money and incentivize team to invest in learning. And then from a planning point of view, I know like big organization have like structured change management and transition plan, but smaller organization or smaller projects might not have. So that's where like community of practice might come into play, where you could create some sort of like templates that could be reused by like the project owner or a stakeholder, and that would give clear cut vision of how we can roll of resources, what the transition should look like. Think about brown bag sessions that you can talk about. I know like few of the mentors here are MVPs, so they do a lot of blogging, so they can talk about how coolly they have done some problem solving to others, which might spark interest. Yeah, this is all about organizational strategy, and I'll probably try to get the result of the other poll as well and put it in the chat.
Great, thanks, Bella. So yeah, we'll put up the last poll. This was the last slide that we had, but hopefully that's given an overview of not just a kind of personal journey that was relevant to this mentorship program, but also something that I think affects more people than are really willing to talk about it or feel that they have the space to talk about it. So hopefully some of those strategies can be useful for you going forward. I know we've gone slightly over our 15 minutes, so I'll close out there. It looks like the poll results are in, and there's definitely some of you that have experienced some of the issues, and definitely some of you that already do some of the strategies. So good to know. Thank you for your participation in the polls, and I shall finish there.
Thank you, Sheena. Just want to very quickly open it up to those on the call for any questions for Sheena. Anyone have any questions?
No questions as such, but more just agree it's not a topic that is openly spoken about. And as well as the organisational strategies, having personal strategies to deal with stuff. I know when I come off a project that I've been very closely working with, so I'm in consultancy, so I have my team on the consultancy side and the customer side. And the longer you work on those projects, the more you can have such really unique bonds and sometimes make friendships out of these engagements, which is an absolute bonus. But when I come off them, I kind of have that sense of abandonment. Not so much that it's just my team that's dispersing, but the customers are no longer there. You speak to these people every single day for months and months and months, and they're just gone, just like that. So I have my own personal strategies, which might sound really weird, but I will purposely at the end of a project buy a Lego set or go and do something that gives me like an additional dopamine hit as almost a way of celebration to then try and plan to keep those sort of connections going. Add them on LinkedIn, get their phone numbers, share a bit of banter. Next time I'm close to the office, maybe we can meet for a drink or a bite to eat. And having those sort of personal strategies to keep those relationships going, because I think they can be quite important, and we don't want them to stop right away and then feel a bit down because of it. So, yeah, I resonate with that topic, and it's great that it's discussed, and I'd like to see more of it. So, yeah, nice one for bringing it to the table. It's good.
Thanks for your
Thanks,
comments,
Craig, for sharing. Yeah, I resonate with what you just said there. I might also do the Lego, get my dopamine fix.
It's quite an expensive dopamine fix, just throwing it out there, but yeah, there might be cheaper options available.
Next time we can share all of our Legos that we've built after the end of our projects then.
Smashing. And then Sheena, you'll share your slides with me after, and then I can distribute them to the group after. So amazing. If there's no more questions, then I'll hand it over to Drew and Tracy to talk about gathering business requirements.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we're going to talk about like the complete opposite end of a project. Instead of the very end here, we'll talk more about starting the project. I know with especially Power Platform projects or maybe any projects that scope creep is extremely real. And I don't know about you, but I work with only like external consulting clients, and the second they see something that's possible with the Power Platform, it's like, oh, and I want this, and I want this. So we'll talk about some strategies to make sure we're gathering requirements properly to kind of mitigate that from happening. But my name is Drew Tatum, and I'm excited to be here.
My name is Tracy Fife.
Awesome. So there are 5 C's for maybe everything in the world. Like if you Google 5 C's, there's a 5C for everything. So we decided we would make a 5C for project planning in the Power Platform as well. So the kind of first thing that's applicable to any of the tools, and we'll kind of break out tools in a minute, but clarifying really what the business requirements are, and so that you know really the root cause of like the problem that you're solving and what they're hoping to get out of it. Anything? I want to skip over you, Tracy. Do you have anything else for clarify?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Just jump in. And then contextualize would be the second one. So learning about like what other tools they're using, what systems they're using currently, the databases, really understanding how are they working. Because I've found that if you don't meet people in the thing that you're creating the way that they're working, it's not as successful. So like an easy example of this would be like my boss never checks his email. He's only in Teams. So people are like really frustrated if they send automated emails to him. They're like, he never responds to me. I never get what I want. Well, you need to meet them in the tools and the like systems that they're working in. So really understanding, do people prefer Teams? Do people prefer SharePoint? Like how are people working? And then the challenge. So what specific problem are we solving with this project? I think a lot of times people can kind of come in to Power Platform projects and say like they want this grandiose thing that's like not really solving a problem, or they just saw something that they thought was cool, or something I've run into a lot is like we have one team in an organization solve an actual problem, and then other teams see that and they're like, oh, that looks fun, build that for us too. But you really want to get clear on what problems these people are having, so that you can really build a solution towards that. And then calculating, I think figuring out how you measure success in a project is really important. And I think it's something that a lot of people skip over. So is it adoption rates, like how many people are starting to use your Canvas app as opposed to what you were using before? Or is it the amount of time that you're saving with reducing manual work? Really getting clear with that with the project lead so that you make sure that as the creator or the builder, we're really focused on that. And lastly is connecting. Who are the users? What roles do they need? Who are the admin? Who are just going to be using the tool? Who need to know the back end? Do you need training for these other users? Because you're building something really cool, but if they don't understand what a Canvas app is and like that it works like a normal web page or any other app, you may have less adoption when you roll out your project. Anything else on here that you want to add, Tressie, before we switch to your slides?
No, because I'm going to be breaking down like more of the challenge and kind of finding out what those problems are.
Perfect. All right.
So focusing on what is the problem and what's the solution that you're trying to solve for. I've noticed in my role as a business analyst that when you're working with business users versus technical users, there's a big language barrier. And a lot of the time, the business users don't even understand their own problem. So I use the framework of the 5 C's when finding the root of a problem, because a lot of the times when they come with you with saying, hey, I'm having this issue, I need you to make something to solve it. Well, a lot of the time that's just at the surface level. So I always make sure that I ask at minimum 5 whys to figure out why that is a problem so that I can dig deeper and deeper to actually find the root. So I'm not just trying to put a band-aid on an issue. I'm actually trying to solve the complete problem. So in this slide, I provided a basic example of what the 5 whys looks like in a real world problem. So why are the programs struggling to accurately forecast success for their partnerships? Because they don't have a clear vision. Okay, well, why isn't there clear visibility? Because there's no metric to track. Why isn't there a success rate? On the Power BI report, program team hasn't identified a KPI. So you can't measure something if you haven't identified it as important. Why isn't the partnership success rate then identified as a key metric? Well, there's no standardized process. And then the last why that I would ask is, why is there no standard process? And it's because leadership hasn't discussed the need for this. So all in all, for this problem that the program team is struggling to forecast the success of their partnerships, a lot of the issue finds with a lack of communication between the executive teams and leadership to the employees who are putting out the work. I find that happens a lot. So after I've figured out the root of the problem, that is when I start coming up with a data solution. Power BI is kind of my forte and my baby that I love to play in. So I came up with a project plan on how a full Power BI project comes to fruition. If we move to the next slide. So when you are planning a Power BI solution, there's a lot of different steps and a lot of things that need to be configured before you should start going in and making and pulling data, querying and writing code in DAX. Because a lot of the times you could actually miss the mark of exactly what they need. So of course, the first thing we need to do is understand the purpose. We need to define the goal of the dashboard. What are we going to be tracking? How is it going to be tracked? Why is it going to be tracked? Then we identify the data entities. What are the main elements in the entities? And we needed to define the table structures. I know in our internal CRM, it is kind of messy. It's a total disaster in a lot of ways, and everyone's using data inputs a different way with a different meaning. So a lot of the times we have to find out what all the meanings are and what are all of those elements and what teams are using what in order to figure out what structures and tables are actually even necessary. Then we have to define the relationships. What are the relationships between the data marker? An account name, where is it related to across the entire system? Is it related to events and activities? Is it related to some other metric of being connected to another account? You know, you have to actually be able to identify all of those relationships before you could even build anything. The next thing I determined is the granularity. A lot of time there's a mismatch between what the employees need and what leadership need. Leadership often need that higher above hierarchy, high level view of everything. Meanwhile, the employees and team leaders, they need to know a more detailed metric for whatever they're measuring. So we need to be able to show both sides to be able to meet the needs of everyone in the organization. Then we need to define the measures and calculations. Are we going to need some, or are we going to need some X? That's one example that I provided, average or median. A lot of those, determining on the DEX that you're using, what are we trying to measure and how? You really need to dig down deep and kind of see what the data looks like, see how it's aggregated, and figure out if you need a measure or a calculation for each type of thing that you are tracking. Finally, once you've actually dug down deep and you kind of have all of these requirements, you have all of this information written down and figured out, that's when we can start pulling in the data, and we have to clean it and transform it. A lot of the times, just like in what I said earlier, everyone's using inputs differently and it means something different to each person. So we need to make sure that standardization is there so that we can clean and transform data exactly how it needs to be and how it needs to look, without changing the meaning of it. We also need to figure out how often do they need the data to be up to date. Sometimes you'll need something daily. Sometimes, you know, a lot of businesses only need like a monthly report. So that means that your refreshes don't need to happen as often. Other times you may need real time, which takes a lot more computing power than something that needs monthly. So you need to ensure that the internal computing capacities match the integrations that you need. Finally, we start getting into the design. I really push for user-centric design, making sure that each person who is going to be using the dashboards knows how to use it and it's easy for them. It's all about their experience, because if they can pull up a dashboard, but if they can't read it, it's of no help to them. So ensuring that you understand each role's expectations and what each role needs out of the dashboard is incredibly important to making sure it's very easily accessible to them. Finally, I make sure to document every step in the process and making sure to document every measure and how it's measured to ensure that there is a troubleshooting doc that everyone can go to if they don't understand thing and I may not be available. However, I also think it's really important to take time to train each user and role to use the dashboards for whatever they need to use it for, to ensure that they're well knowledgeable and can navigate it well. Finally, make sure that the dashboards and the metrics that you make are scalable and are able to evolve with the business needs. A lot of the times we start off small and then we end up needing to get bigger and bigger. So ensuring that you have a structure and design that can be scalable to fill the needs of multiple requests and multiple demands that evolve over time is incredibly important. Any questions? Awesome.
Okay. So this is a lot of the technical, right? Like we've front loaded with all of the technical things you need to ask people and do. And I just want to share in our last segment here about something less technical that's really helped me out as I've been in charge of building projects. So that's using Loop workspaces to kind of bring clarity and like a central hub to projects that people feel comfortable using. So I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but when I started kind of building things that people were requesting, I work only with external clients, but I was getting a lot of emails, and like sometimes people email in all caps when something doesn't work, and there's like something that triggers my brain. If it's in my email, it feels urgent. And like on top of that, if a client uses all caps or like an exclamation point, I'm like, oh my God, I have to fix this right now. And I just felt like I was like putting fires out everywhere, right? Like instead of owning my time and delegating my time the way I know is best, it kind of like spiraled out of control. And then other people were in charge of my calendar and my time. So I make a loop workspace for every single project I'm working on. And I make sure that the project details are easy to find. Before beginning any work on the project, I have like a 15-20 minute session to walk through the people who are actually like testing and using and a part of this project, understand where to find things. So I start with a homepage, and that kind of central hub means less time hunting for different things, different information, to move the project forward. So on the project homepage, I have a section for like this welcome, right? This is like, it explains the purpose of this workspace. Then I have the project purpose in there so that if anyone becomes unclear at any point, it's right there on the front. Then I have sections below this that are project members. So we're up to date. I shouldn't be receiving or like adding any other people that are not on this. I have a section for onboarding materials. So any information, like if I'm building like this one, the screenshot is a Canvas app, and there's SharePoint included, and there's automations. So any sort of knowledgeable materials I have for onboarding this type of project, I include those links here. So things like even diagrams or workflows of like how I envision this process working from start to end as the user, that's included in there. Then I have my communication preferences. In there, I basically say, I will respond to you. I will work on the project, but you need to put your feedback in the feedback tracker. Like that's another page. And every time I start work, I go into the feedback tracker. I look at what you've written and I start work on that. Obviously I say some things like on fire, you can email me, but like nothing's really ever on fire. And then I have like links to important things. So if they need a link to the SharePoint site that I'm building, or if they need a link to the app that I'm building, or any of those things, that's included on this project homepage. I have the project milestones on here, and then their status. So they know at a quick glance, hey, she's in progress on this, this, and this. These things are completed. We're on track to finish the project, or maybe we're behind for some reason. And then I link any of the announcements and updates. So all of these meeting notes and status reports, I make sure that those are up to date. I link them from the homepage, but it goes just directly to a different loop page. And then I have like the project charter linked in there, and then maybe some FAQs on this project homepage. So they know that they can come here anytime that they want to. If they're working at 11 p.m. and I don't work at 11 p.m., they can come see any of the updates. And then next is the feedback tracker. So when updates live in your inbox, everything can feel urgent. So a shared feedback space lets contribution happen anytime that they want to, while you kind of keep control of your time as the project builder. So at any point in time, you can see like in this screenshot, somebody's added feedback and like the status is not started. When I start working, I come in here, I see the feedback that's added, and I can add that to the things that I'm working on. It allows people to give updates whenever they want to and whenever they work best, whenever they're updating things or testing things, but doesn't impede on when I'm actually working on the project. Next are the status report pages. So updates should really drive decisions and not just fill space in a project. So we want to make sure that the updates we're giving either tell them that we've completed their feedback or that we need like an update to how things are working. So I think a collaborative format supports that intention really well. So what I do is I will turn either the updates or below this, there's usually like a questions I have for them or something like that. I'll turn that into a loop component and I'll paste that right in my email. So in my email, I will email people because people work that way, right? And I want them to kind of get a notification that there's this status report. I will link out the full status report and then I'll actually embed whatever feels most important to me at the time. So like this status report on August 11th, for example, I had like 2 questions for them that I really needed to know in order to move the project forward. So I created just that little section into a loop component, and then you can embed that right in the email and they can just type back in the loop component. So it really turns things more collaborative while still hosting all of the information about this project in the exact same place. And so my last like little thing here is the easy embed in Outlook. So communicate in a way that's familiar to people, but we don't want that data to live in our email, right? Email, I like will always say, is where anything goes to die. Like nobody's going back in there and saving attachments or like searching attachments or like searching for this question and a response. I don't want that to be the case. This is from my Loop workspace. They type in the response right here in the email, and then it's automatically updated in the Loop workspace. So I don't really have to go back into email to see what they responded, if they respond in the correct spot, which we take care of at the beginning with training. Okay. Any questions on the kind of Loop workspace thing before we're done?
I will add that, so Drew, who is my mentor, shared this with me a week ago or so. We took a deep dive because I didn't know about Microsoft Loop very well. And so for some context, I work for a small quasi-governmental nonprofit, which means certainly lately we're broke. Well, with that, we had to cut down on some of our software costs because there are administrative fees, and grants don't like to pay for administrative anything. So we do not have Microsoft Project. We don't have Asana or Jira anymore like we used to, and we haven't had these tools for almost about 8 months now. And so I took a deep dive after her and I met, and she gave me a deep dive, and I have a new project that actually just kicked off a couple weeks ago. So I started the loop for it and kind of gave a big overview to our EVPO. And we're actually looking into ways to incorporate it in the company because it does come with our 365 subscription and it does have that collaborative thing. And it's, going to solve a lot of complaints probably across the company over the next couple of months. So very thankful for this tool being part of 365.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you can, like Delia said in the chat, you can embed full planners in the Loop workspace if you want to too. So if you have you've actually tracked tasks and you want the people a part of the project to see that, you can embed that right into Loop. So again, on that home page, they could see anything that they want to about the project. And if there's nothing else, this is the end of our kind of project presentation.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Really appreciate this. Both presentations were amazing, by the way. Really happy for you both to volunteer. Maybe same question as well. Maybe Drew or Tracy, will you send me your slides after and I can circulate them later on after this call? Just opening up to the audience, is there any questions generally about both presentations or this one in particular?
I was going to say something about that, but then Sarah is on with her. Is that your dog? Because if that's your dog, send me that fluff ball. No, I wanted to say kudos to both, actually. I apologize. I missed some of each one, but they were still so good. One, Sheena, I'm going to be honest. I have definitely never actually realized the stages of going through, especially in a project that's like super toxic and you bond with your teammates because you're like, we're in hell together. and then all of a sudden you're like, where did my friends go? Right? Like, I think that was really well put. I really enjoy that thought process. I am going to share it with my team because even I'm a seller now, so I'm not even in the trenches of the development and all that kind of stuff. But even through a sales cycle, you have your certain core people that you're dealing with, and then you're like, okay, they sign, and you have to go off to the next one. You're like, but wait, like it's a genuine thing. So I really love that you pointed that out. And then Drew, I just sent a note to my modern work peer, and I was like, you will never believe what I'm seeing on our mentor thing. I was like, they're showing Loop and Planner. And she was like, wait a second, I didn't know they would do that on your team. And I said, we're open to whatever technology, whatever. I mean, it's like power brings us together, but I was like, this is really exciting. So now she is absolutely sad that she's like, well, if it's recorded, I want to watch it. So no, kudos. This has been really great. I love that it's so diverse in what you're bringing and what everybody's able to kind of learn from. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
I have a question.
Okay, there's nothing. Oh, there's a question. Yep, please
just
go
one
ahead.
quick
No,
question,
please go
and
ahead.
it's really just about that the Loop piece that you mentioned, and you do the 20-minute session to kind of onboard people to using it. Do you find it easy to get people to interact with it? I know when I've tried it, not nearly in as extensive a way that you do it, but even with things like Planner, sometimes it's really difficult to get people to actually use the technology. You find they just hit reply in Outlook and they send their updates in the reply. How challenging have you found it to get people to come on that journey?
I haven't had any pushback since I started doing this and like kind of moved away from email. I know I still like email the link to the status update, but I think showing people like exactly how to interact helps instead of just being like, this is here, you can interact. Like saying, typing in your feedback, like letting me know what doesn't go right, or like even if you want to have a meeting, like you can put that right there, and kind of giving them those like prompts for what they can type in, and how they can interact, I feel like is helpful. And then I just like, I don't allow it to happen. Like if they respond in the email, I'll say like, you need to put this in the feedback. I won't see this. Like it won't get done.
And
And
maybe just to add to that feedback as well. So I had a bit of a challenge getting my customers on board towards Planner. They were very much stuck on the mindset of email. And I actually hold them accountable, a bit like what you said there, Drew. So I usually start off my sessions going through the Planner just to sort of see, okay, what tasks have been completed? And then I would question them and say, oh, you've not provided any comments for your task for today. So it kind of makes them feel a little bit accountable. And it's my reverse psychology thing. But I still live and breathe the tool on this project, and eventually they pick things up. But yeah, just resonated what Drew said there about sticking
Thank
to
you, that
what's
was
right
helpful.
for you.
And like even asking them, like, I see there's no feedback. I'm starting to work. Does that mean we're ready for the next phase of the project? And they're like, oh, shoot, I've definitely written feedback somewhere. I just like haven't put it in the right spot.
Have you ever looked at how much time you think this is like saving you, or did you get, validated sooner so that you're like, oh, we didn't miss something because it was all centrally located and it wasn't? Because Drew, I'm the same way. If you want to get a hold of me, Teams, text, call. You wanted to go into the abyss, email. And it's horrible because I know this about myself, so I literally have to force myself. And sometimes I even have Copilot go through and sniff it out for me, so I just don't even have to deal with it, because I'm like, hey, if it's from one of my accounts and it has all my account names like there, then like highlight them. Otherwise, I'm like, best of luck to you of coming to me in real time.
And now you can actually use Copilot to prioritize your emails. So you can actually establish what you define as high priority versus low priority. And I just started using that this week, and it's been amazing. Like, I don't even look at the down arrowed marked emails anymore. I just look at the up arrows as the first place I check out.
I love that.
No, I haven't done or considered the exact amount of time. But there's definitely places where I could do that, where I've missed something in projects before I use this. I think it would be cool to have some sort of feature like Power Automate is putting out now, with the time saved or the money saved option. And maybe that's just part of the Power Platform project as a whole, that we factor in communication to that time.
Yeah, because that's definitely what you're seeing in the Power Platform space, is that we did a lot on just getting you moving forward faster, and then we found a lot of customers really couldn't tell you. They knew it was better, but they didn't know how to quantify it. And so I think that's why you're seeing so much more invested in letting us help you tell that story of what the return is and why it makes sense and everything. So anyways, yeah, good thought process on that. Awesome. Do y'all feel good? You got done? Excited?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I loved both presentations. It's a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Then I will, let's wrap up for today. We have another session next Thursday, so please do join if you have the time to do so. We have 2 presenters as well next week. Sheena, Drew, I will sync with you offline to get your presentations, and I will circulate them after. Amazing. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Awesome.
Have a great day.
Thanks,
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you.